And bear in mind, I'm a lawyer. That's all I know. I've been a private client lawyer all that time, doing quite a lot of work abroad, and that's really what I'm doing now with Mourant Ozannes. So that's where I come from. The first thing I would say, which is a general point, is be a good listener. There's a lot of talk about the language barrier. I'm not talking about people speaking different languages. I'm talking about someone talking to you and telling you what they think they're trying to do. And if you listen carefully, you may find that what they're actually saying is quite different to what the language they're using. And you need to be able to understand what it is that, in my case, a client is actually trying to achieve. So listening is an art. You can actually reduce that to a social context. I always prefer to listen to people talking rather than to talk myself, as you probably gathered. It's something which is extremely important. The second thing I'd say is never assume that anything can't be done or that a problem can't be solved. I actually sat today with a client of mine, former client of mine, I've known for 25 years, and I remember towards the beginning of that relationship, and this is a bit politically incorrect because I'm talking here about tax planning, and he said to me, so I got this company, and it's actually now one of the biggest privately owned construction companies in the world. He said, I pay a vast amount of corporation tax, but I do not want to pay tax on dividends that I receive from the business. So I said, sorry, can't do anything about that, it can't be done. It's UK source income, you will therefore have to pay tax. He said, don't think you're actually listening to what I'm saying. He said, I pay my dues, I don't want to pay income tax on the dividends. So actually, with the assistance of a very smart guy from Deloitte, Deloitte here this evening, we managed to restructure the ownership of the business and achieve what he wanted. I had another client much more recently who was told by his accountant that he needed to pay something like £4 million to the Inland Revenue because he'd been the beneficiary of an offshore trust for many, many years, and he hadn't paid any tax on benefits. And they offered to do a deal, and we would have to pay several £1 million and sign a letter with the Revenue. And I said, I don't think that's right. I think there's a way around this because of the way this trust was set up in the first place. And after several years and several meetings with the Revenue, I think basically they got fed up with us and they agreed. So that's not hugely successful and intellectual tax planning, but never assume that a problem can't be solved. The third thing I'd say, and this is perhaps a little bit life skills, but be true to yourself. There's a Shakespearean version of that, which I can't remember. And I think I'd try and illustrate that, and forgive me for going back into ancient history, but I meant to Google this on the way up here and I forgot. I was a partner years ago in a firm called Turner Kenneth Brown, which flourished in the 70s and 80s and crashed very badly in the 90s. And a legal partnership that goes wrong is a very, very ugly customer. In fact, partnerships are about the worst business medium you could possibly hope to create, where everybody is, in those days, personally liable for all the debts of the partnership, whether or not they've actually got any assets. And certain partners decided to stay with the firm, certain partners decided to leave. I rejoiced in the role of managing partner for the last 18 months of that firm, which was a crisis management out of what looked like bankruptcy for all the people concerned. I could have left, I could have stayed. I decided to stay, other people decided to leave, that was fair enough. There were quite a few people who kind of shut the front door and wouldn't come out. I think that the people who made the decision as to what they were going to do were true unto what they thought was right, and they acted honestly. There were certain people who didn't. So be true to yourself, and that's a life skill. So that's what I leave you with. Thank you very much.